والحجاب وقف الطفل وحده والليالي ورصاص من حوله وجنود. وقف الطفل والحجارة أكوام وعيناه عزمة وصمود. وعيناه عزمة وصمود.
Image out of my heart when we've seen the bodies found in a mountain of parts. Netanyahu told you just another child of the dark. Clear it's gonna take much more than thousands to march, more than a speech, more than a poem, more than a track of music. Gonna take more than a sit down with Bassem Youssef. Even bringing back ambassadors is an act that's useless long as you pump oil for Apaches and the tanks they use in. Freedom just beyond reach for people you cannot see. He's wheezing and cannot breathe and screaming through the concrete, looking for his 4 children. The bombs leave structures that I wouldn't want to call buildings. My fingers pointed at this government, you all killed them. Tell me that you wouldn't take up arms if those were your children. Let me make the factor clear, if bombs were manufactured here and they want the land as theirs because of natural gas in there. Feel death in the atmosphere while we hapless stand and stare. And a little boy begs for his brother's strand of hair. Truth is I don't know how anyone can live after digging for their dead kids buried under bricks. Israel is a terror state, terrorists that terrorize. I testify my television televised, I'm telling lies. This is not a war, it is systematic genocide. But whatever they try, Palestine will never die. They're not prepared to face the pain, so they're scared to say your name. They're not prepared to face the pain, so they're scared to say your name. They're not prepared to face the pain, so they're scared to say your name. They're not prepared to face the pain, so they're scared to say your name.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, free, 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 free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, free, 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 free.
They bomb churches and paramedics, it's hurting, the panic spreading. Hospitals where the doctors do C-sections, no anesthetics. The pressure is manifesting, humanity stands connected. Masses seem apathetic and actually just accept it. When our grandchildren ask us, what did we do to stop it? I'm determined to say I did more than make music on it. That's why we shut down arms factories. You can try stopping us. Palestine action's the opposite of white phosphorus. We tell them on the television, but they never listen. Tell Piers Morgan that resistance isn't terrorism. They want them fled or missing, death or prison, endless killing. I seen a father hold his baby up, the head was missing. Imagine demolition of home where your parents live in. Kings won't say a thing, but at least we know that Yemen's with them. Ethnic cleansing, it ain't hard to see the stages, but Gaza is a graveyard of the invaders. Ears close to the savagery, cleared though when there's clarity. The journalists and doctors are heroes of humanity. As sordid and as gory as this story is for now, are they depopulating Gaza for Ben Gurion's canal? Israel is a terror state, terrorists that terrorize. I testify my television televised, I'm telling lies. This is not a war, it is systematic genocide. But whatever they try, Palestine will never die.
نسلم ولن نرحل من هذه الأرض، بل سنتقدم إلى أرضنا، إلى بلادنا، إلى فلسطين.
Peace, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us. My name is Nancy Mansour. I am the Executive Director at Eyewitness Palestine, and today's webinar is extremely important, as everybody that's speaking is speaking from Palestine. These are firsthand experiences and organizations that are working on the ground, that live on the ground in the West Bank, and the most important voice is the voice of the Palestinian that is living the atrocities that are happening and that go through the system that puts them in jail unjustly. And we don't always get to hear their stories. And so I'm really excited to be able to host this with you all. I do want to ask folks to please support Eyewitness Palestine. You can go to our website, eyewitnesspalestine.org, and sign up if you are not on our list. If you saw this on social media or through another list, please sign up to our list on our website, eyewitnesspalestine.org. And you can also make donations there to our organization. We do appreciate them so we can continue bringing you these educational webinars on a more regular basis. We definitely need the support of everybody. I want to thank everyone on our team, Maureen, Kaki, our entire board, who have been amazing in helping us bring you this programming and all the work that we do. I want to just give you a couple of facts that on October 6th of 2023, there were 4,450 Palestinian political prisoners in Israeli jails. Today, we're talking about over 7,000. And very important to note that one of the females that was released 5 days ago, Janine Amro from El Khalil, from Hebron, has already been rearrested. And a very important note, and I'm sure somebody on our panel will be covering how that works with them releasing and then rearresting as soon as they can. Our first amazing speaker, I'm so glad that she took the time out to be able to speak to us. She holds a master's degree in law and is currently a human rights lawyer and spokesperson for Addameer. Please unmute your mic, Tala Nasir.
Yes, hello. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having this important webinar, actually. I'm going to start with some, let me say, statistics on the current situation inside Israeli prisons and after the 7th of October, actually. Just like you said, currently we're having over more than 7,800 Palestinian political prisoners. They are held inside Israeli prisons, including more than 2,800 administrative detainees. They are held without a charge, without a trial. In addition to 166 children detained and 33 women prisoners, including 11 prisoners who were arrested from inside Gaza. Of course, that's what we learned from the released prisoners, the released women prisoners. In addition to 260 Palestinians from Gaza who are now held under the unlawful combatant law, which is similar actually to the administrative detention. After the 7th of October, until this day, we're talking about arresting more than 3,600 detainees, including over 150 female detainees, 41 journalists, 14 members of the Legislative Council, in addition to more than 300 children and more than 100 university students. From the beginning of the past truce or the prisoner exchange deal until this day, more than 300 Palestinians were detained. And it's actually much more than the number of released prisoners within this exchange deal. If you're talking about also the situation in prisons, actually after the 7th of October and as events escalated, many punitive measures have been imposed against Palestinian prisoners. We have documented many of the extensive violations taking place inside prisons, including violent raids by the special forces, firing tear gas, brutally beating the prisoners, in addition to the ban for the visitation for the families and lawyer visitations. There are now many restrictions on lawyers' visits. The prisoners are also denied medical care. There is a cut off electricity in several prisons. They are transferring a number of prisoners to isolation. And of course, all the testimonies we heard from the released prisoners within the exchange deal confirm all these punitive measures which are enacted by the Israeli occupation. And one important thing to shed light on is that with less than a month, 6 Palestinian prisoners died inside Israeli prisons. And until now, 4 of them were actually arrested after the 7th of October. And actually, this is an unprecedented number. And we're talking about young men who are 25 years old and so on. And until this moment, we have actually no idea or no accurate information about the circumstances of their death. One of them, we don't know the name of the detainee who was killed inside the Israeli prisons. All we know is that he's from Gaza, but we don't know his name. But of course, with all the testimonies from the released prisoners, which affirm that they have been brutally beaten, actually, and they were denied medical care. So that's briefly the situation actually right now inside prisons, in addition to the mass arrest campaign still taking place until this day. 80% of the Palestinians detained are being held under administrative detention, which means there are no charges presented against them. There is no trial. So it's of course an arbitrary detention. I can add, if you would like, in the questions, I can take only this time. And if you have any other questions in the time, I can answer, of course.
Thank you, Tala. Thank you so much. And yeah, folks, feel free to put the questions that you have in the chat. We may ask them in between speakers. We're planning on doing it towards the end, just to give everybody a chance to be heard. But if there are questions that you have, feel free to put them in and we'll take notes. Our next speaker is a Palestinian activist, life and business coach, and also the son of Palestinian political leader and prisoner who was sentenced to 5 consecutive life sentences, Dr. Marwan Barghouti. Arab, تفضل خيا.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. So I think because there are so many points that we can cover about the political prisoners, I thought that it would be it would be a really good start with a testimonial from a political prisoner who just got released like a few days ago.
Did we lose you, Arab?
Seems like it.
I think he is having some technical issues. In the meantime, Tala, I don't know if you can answer this, but somebody asked, to be clear, the percentage of arrests that are being made under administrative detention, is it now higher than it was before October 7th? And that was a question from Joy. Did we lose Tala as well? Okay, we will go to the next speaker until Arab comes back. Our next speaker is a very close friend, a former political prisoner of 20 years. He went to jail at the age of 19 years old. He was originally sentenced to 30 years And after 15 years of his parents fighting, constant appeals, various lawyers, his sentence was reduced to 20 years, and he was released last year. This brother's mother, Allah yarhamha Lulu, fought very hard for his release, and literally until the day she passed away. And they forbid him to attend the funeral. And this is a common thing with them. I don't know if you guys remember the story of Khalida Jarrar and her daughter passing away, and she was also not allowed to go to her daughter's funeral. And I just want folks to really think about and put themselves in that position, and to think, if you're a political prisoner and then somebody that close to you and your immediate family passes away, and they do not allow you to be there to, have that last moment with them. So next up is our brother Majd Ziyada. تفضل خيا.
شكرا نانسي. Hello everybody. I don't want to repeat what Nancy has said, but it's a good opportunity for me to tell you about the Zionist military court. As Nancy said now, that I was sentenced for 30 years in 2003. And like I spent 15 years in prison, and my lawyer discovered like a mistake in the court procedures or something like that. Then he applied for the court, and then they reduced my sentence to 20 years. What I want to mention here about the military court, in the West Bank, in the occupied West Bank, there's 3 laws. We are under 3 laws. The Palestinian law, which conducted by the PA, and the military law, which the Palestinians in general in West Bank are under it, and other law, which belong to the Israeli settlers or the Zionist settlers. So when some of the Zionists in the West Bank violate their law, they will judge him or sentence him under the Israeli law. And when a Palestinian violate their law, which we don't like to say it's a law that we obey it, we are sentenced, or we go to a military court. What I want to say here, that this issue is referring to racist thing. Like if you are Palestinians, they will treat you in a way. If you are Zionist, they will treat you in another way. Other thing, that the military law and the military court, for me, it's like a play. What I want to refer that sometimes when they are they arrest a lot of prisoners, they started to talk with the lawyers to make a deal. We can do things to judge this prisoner for 20 years, and we can make his other colleague 10 years. It's like a bazaar. For me, what I saw, it's like a bazaar. And the other thing, that in the military court, you will find a judge, the judgment in the court is wearing military, the uniform for the Israeli soldiers. So he's this organization which arrests you, which judge you, and then they put you in the prison. The same organization, or the same military system. So from my experience, it was they making to legitimize their actions or their procedures. They want to bring lawyer, judge, and the prisoners, and they can like manipulate in this court to produce like a picture for the world or for the society or for anyone that there's a justice system or there is a law that we are working according to this law. But I want also to refer to a story from my experience to like mention what is the situation inside the Zionist prison. There was a man, old man. His name is Maysar Abu Hamdiye. He was arrested in 2002. Then he was, I think, 75, 78 years old. He's from Hebron, from the West Bank. I met him several times during my journey in prisons, but the last time I met him, it was in like 2009. He was complaining from a pain in his throat. So we talked with the prisons guards that they have to take him to the clinic or to the hospital to make a checkup or something like that. They ignored our demands. Then they allow him to go to the clinic. They diagnosed him like, yeah, you have a flu or something like that. But he continued to complain from this pain. Then they like closed the section we were living, and they traveled him to another prison, and I went to Nafha prison in the Nakab Desert. After that, they like took him in like 2012 or 2013 to the hospital to make a checkup for his throat after suffering for years and years. They discovered that that he has a cancer in his throat. Just 1 week after they diagnosed him by cancer, he died. Unfortunately, he died. But what I want to say here, that the medical system inside the prisons are so bad. Not like they can take anybody. No, we don't want to treat you or something like that. Maybe they like diagnose or they treat prisoners if they complain from anything. But let's imagine that Nakab prison, there I think 2,000 prisoners in this prison, and one clinic, one doctor, and maybe 2 or 3 nurses. So they can't deal with this huge number of prisoners with just one clinic. So there's a process to go to the hospital, then they like make a checkup, and you get the results, and then they started to treat you. So the structure of the medical system in prisons are so bad. Also, I think it's for me an opportunity to talk about the situation in these days in prisons. It's hard to know what's happening there exactly, because we don't have any kind of connection with them, but we have what we've hearing about this situation, about what's happening there, as we know that 6 prisoners were killed inside the Israeli or the Zionist prisons. Why I'm saying that they were killed? Because in 2 months, 6 prisoners were passed away. So we don't have any kind of explanation of what's happening there in this short period to find that 6 prisoners were passed away. Another thing that we met prisoners that they have been released like 2 weeks ago or 10 days ago. They told us about how they started to beat them, to torture them, to like to get revenge from what's happening in the 7th of October from the prisoners. So I'm really worried, and I have a lot of concerns about what's happening with my friends inside prisons. I feel like they are completely, let's say, they depart them from the whole world. No one know anything about them. They don't allow lawyers to visit them. They don't allow their families to visit them. So I think there's a horrible things happening inside the prisons. Other thing that I want to mention here, that when they started to invade the Gaza Strip, they arrested a lot of Palestinians there. They refused to announce about the numbers and the names of the Palestinians that they arrested them from Gaza. I'm worried, and I'm really worried that they will kill them, because I have no other explanation about why they don't want to announce their numbers, their names, because there's something mysterious happening. It's not like what we have been regular about their procedures when they arrest anyone. The Red Cross know about the names, numbers, the places that they imprisoned, and something like that. And thank you, Nancy, for this meeting, and thank you for everybody.
Thank you, Maj. Thank you so much. We do have questions that are coming in, so keep them coming into the chat. Next up, we're going to go back to our brother, Palestinian activist, life and business coach, and son of political prisoner, Dr. Marwan Barghouti, our brother, Arab Barghouti. تفضل خيا.
Thank you again, Nancy, and I really apologize for the internet issues. To go back to the testimonial that I started with, so this is a prisoner that just got released a few days ago, and he said, we were sitting in the jail cell at the daily counting times. Out of nowhere, the prison guards came in and started hitting us very hard for no reason, which is something they do regularly since October 7th. They started stripping us naked. They took Thaer Abu Asab, a guy who was arrested since 2005. They took him to the bathroom, and they hit him very hard on his head with a big baton. Blood started spreading everywhere. Instead of stopping, they hit him again on his shoulder that got broken. They hit him for a third time, even though he wasn't moving. A piece of his skull fell on the floor. And then they left him there and just left the cell. We didn't know what to do and started calling them as he wasn't moving. We begged them to help him. Then we checked on Thaer. Thaer was already dead. We covered him with our own hands. Thaer was such a great guy. They left him in there for 2 full hours and simply came and took his body. When we asked for medicine, and lastly, he said, I can't sleep since then. I keep seeing Thaer in my nightmares. When we ask for medicine, they reply, we'll give it to you when you're dead, which is what they want, for all of us to die. And they never stopped hitting us afterwards. I truly wish that I can come and speak to anyone, to any group, to any webinar, to any interview, and talk about positive things and talk about development. And this is exactly why we got educated. So we can show the bright side of the Palestinian people, show the positive side. But excuse me if you feel or hear hopelessness in my voice, but that's because I truly struggle to find hope in this world after seeing our people slaughtered and after seeing the land theft of our lands in the West Bank, the apartheid regime that we live in, the open air prison, the slaughtering of our brothers and sisters, and the massacres and the genocide and all of that. I feel so enraged to the fact that the world went upside down for 1,200 Israelis killed on October 7th. And we needed to have 10, 15, 20,000 Palestinians so the world can say ceasefire without being called names, pro-Hamas and pro-terrorism and all of that. I really don't know where this is going, and I've always valued as a chant in Palestine that says, "We die and so Palestine can live." And I used to always say that I'm against that. We live so Palestine can die. I used to always say that, but right now I lost that hope. And I'm back to saying we die so Palestine can live, because apparently as Palestinians, we have to pay the steepest price to just exist, to just live. We're not asking for destroying anyone. We're not asking to take anyone's land. We're not asking for anyone to die. We're simply asking to live, to have our very basic human rights like any other people. My father said it 20 years ago, that we're not an exception, and that he would never, ever accept that the Palestinians would be an exception in the world, and we will never accept less than what we deserve. We deserve our very basic human rights. And he said that 20 years ago. I say it today. My children will say it in 20 years, 30 years. And that's exactly what we rely on. We don't rely on any support like the Israelis from the US and from Germany and from the UK and from France and from all these colonial countries that brought nothing to this world but destruction and colonialism and all these projects. And they, it really fascinates me when I see, for example, German politicians. They come and say clearly that they are with Israel. They stand with Israel, and they don't stand with terrorism and with anti-Semitism and all of that, as if anti-Semitism wasn't their creation from the first place. We are literally paying the price for the atrocities and the racism of Europeans, of European countries, colonial systems that have fed their people with hatred towards the Middle East and towards brown people and towards Muslim people and towards Arabs and towards Africans, even though they are the ones who ruined our lives, not the other way around, historically speaking. Now, to go back to the prisoners' issues, Majd stated very clearly and beautifully what it means. Majd is someone who has spent 2 decades in prison, even though he's still very young. Majd is someone that I look up to, and I learned a lot from, and I still learn from, because these are the types of people that are in prison. They are not criminals, trust me. They always say they're terrorists and they're this and they're that, and they keep calling them names. They're not. They are freedom fighters, and they are people who did not accept to live in humiliation and spoke up and did something. This is exactly why we consider them heroes, and we sacrifice anything for these heroes who sacrificed everything for us Palestinians. I truly think that it's unfair, and we live in a world that is purely unjust, that such amazing human beings spend years and years and years and years in prison. My uncle Marwan Barghouti was arrested the first time in 1978, and he's still in there, in prison. His cousin, Fakhr Barghouti, was also arrested in 1978, and he was released in 2011. But the problem is that when he was released, he left his son in there. who grew up, who he left him when he was 2 years old and grew up and lived his life. And when he became in his 20s, he followed his father and went to prison again. And his father had to leave him in 2011. And Shadi is still in there. So they can prove what they always want to prove to Palestinians, that you will always have this generational trauma and we will never let you live a normal life. We're trying, trust me, we are trying to live a normal life. We're not barbaric as they want to paint us. We want to live a normal life. We want to have kids. We want to grow up. We want to develop our country. We want to live in freedom. We want to have an airport. We want to be able to move from a city to city without being harassed by settlers, without being harassed by checkpoints, by soldiers. The Palestinian cause was never a religious cause. We've never had any problem with Jewish people. We've never denied Jewish history in the Palestinian land. It exists and it will always exist. Palestinian Jews are a huge part of the Palestinian society. But unfortunately, the Zionist movement killed the balance on this land. We've always lived for centuries, Muslims, Christians, and Jewish people with no problems, under many empires, different empires. But when they came and they said that this is a Jewish-only state, that's exactly where the problem started. That's exactly where racism became the essence of this cause. And the biggest proof that this cause is not religious, but root caused by racism is the unconditional support that we see from the Western governments that are complicit in the killing and the suffering of the Palestinian people. And they come and they start judging us that you can have this government and you can't have that government and you can have Hamas and you can't have this political party, as if they are the moral judge in this world, and as if they have the right to come and tell us how to live and who to rule us and all of that. The only hope and the only positive thing from what's happening is that finally the world is waking up. And I truly hope that this awakening is not just a temporary awakening. It's something that can be sustainable. And this depends on each one of you, on me, on every one of us. Because we would be betraying the blood of Palestinian children, Palestinian innocent people, the women that were pregnant, the innocent men, the elderly people that are being slaughtered in Gaza. We would be betraying Tha'ir Abu Asab, who was murdered inside the cell with full impunity. And no one asked any questions to the soldiers and to the security guards, because they can do whatever they want to the Palestinian people, because they simply look at us as subhumans. We haven't heard from my father since October the 7th. He's fully isolated. The only thing that we know is that one of his inmates got released, and when he got released, he said that they took their clothes, they took their shoes, they took their books, and they burned it in front of them, and just to humiliate them. And they make them hungry the whole time, because they give them one bowl of rice for 6 people, for 6 people for the whole day. If I learned one thing from my father, is that he's someone who's always positive and he's relentless. He doesn't stop working for Palestine, and I'm sure right now I can imagine him and picture him in his tiny cell, walking around, putting his hands behind his back and thinking of solutions so he can help his people. And I've always said it, that whenever I go and visit him, which is very rare for them to allow me to visit him every couple of years, where there is glass between us and we can't touch. Whenever I go see him, I really prepare myself very well so I can give him strength. But it's always the other way around. It's always I go there and I get the strength, all the strength from him. and from his fascinating smile that never leaves his face in the darkest places. And this is exactly where we get the strength that we have and the hope that we have. And yes, I do feel some hopelessness because of the scenes that we see in Gaza, and the children, the precious children that are getting slaughtered by this Zionist criminal machine. But at the same time, if they think that killing us and terrorizing us is going to let us be convinced to leave this land, I don't think they learned anything from the 75 years. And the only way for the Israelis to gain their security is by ending the occupation and by giving the Palestinian people what we deserve, which is an independent state of Palestine with Jerusalem as our capital. If they think that anything other than that will satisfy us and will let us give them their security, this would mean that this cycle of violence is not going to end, is never going to end. And I just want to say that I truly hope that each one of you keeps talking about Palestine, keeps raising the awareness about what's happening in Palestine, about the prisoners' issues, because these are our heroes. These are the people that sacrificed for me, for my future, for every Palestinian and their future, and for freedom of humanity, because we're starting to lose hope in humanity because of what's happening to us and because of the genocide that is being practiced with no one saying anything of the governments. But the only hope that we have is that you can put so much pressure on your governments everywhere, no matter where you are, so they can stop being complicit in this injustice and oppression of the Palestinian people, and that we can learn from the South African model, where they sanction the South African government and they let the South African people to know that you are not alone in this fight. Thank you so much for this, and I hope the next time we speak that we would be speaking from a free Palestine.
شكرا عرب. كمان شوي كان بعيط أنا يعني. Thank you. And Evelyn said your passion, Mr. Barghouti, is most admirable. It really is. We appreciate you, brother, for taking the time out. And inshallah, when you do speak to your father, give him our highest regards. Speaking of Thair Abu Asab, who was brutally beaten to death in Al-Naqab in the jails, we have our next speaker, Mahmoud Hweti, was a child prisoner from 15 years old. He was sentenced to 9.5 years old, and his co-defendant and childhood friend is Thair Abu Asab. Mahmoud joins us from Balata refugee camp in Nablus. محمود تفضل خيا.
مساء الخير أو صباح الخير للجميع. بحب أحكي أول إشي بخصوص التجربة اللي أنا عشتها في السجن.
Sorry بس ثواني خيا. أشيرة معنا. We do have a translator. Okay, so كل أكم من جملة خليها ترجم لك. Welcome أشيرة حبيبتي. Thank you.
حويتي على مهلك عليها.
ماشي. أول شيء مرحبا للجميع. بحب أشارككم. Hi for everyone. مش مشكلة. بحب أشارككم التجربة اللي صارت معي، التجربة الشخصية، كيف أنا دخلت السجن في البداية.
I'd like to share with you my personal experience and how I was imprisoned.
كان عمري طبعا 15 سنة، وكنت طبعا طالب مدرسة.
I was 15 years old. I was a school student.
كنت طالب بحب التعليم كثير وبحب المدرسة، كنت طالب شاطر على فكرة.
I was a good student. I really enjoyed going to school.
وزي أي طفل في العالم كان عندي أحلامي وطموحاتي والأمنيات اللي بتمنى أنها تتحقق في يوم من الأيام.
Like any child in the world, I had my dreams and aspirations of things that I wanted to accomplish when I grow up.
فجأة في يوم من الأيام، في اللحظات اللي إحنا بنكون خارج المنزل نلعب أو يعني بنقضي بعض الوقت مع الأصدقاء.
One day I was outside in the playground with where we stand with our friends.
دخل الجيش للمنطقة اللي أنا فيها طبعا، وصار في مواجهات.
The soldiers entered the area where we were, and there was clashes with the Israelis.
كان في كتير ناس ضرب حجار عليهم. بتعرف المواجهات اللي عندنا كيف. أنا طبعا ما كنتش ضمن المواجهات، كنت في منطقة قريبة على المواجهات. كنت تقريبا يعني صارت المواجهات بدي أروح على البيت.
I wasn't exactly in the same place where the clashes were happening, and as you know, there was stone throwing, but I wasn't there. It was just on my way home.
وأنا في الطريق اعتقلوني أنا وكمان اثنين من أصدقائي.
On the way back, I was arrested with two of my friends.
واخذونا على التحقيق ووجهوا لنا تهم طبعا انه احنا كنا نرمي عليهم حجار، وانه احنا كنا نرمي مولوتوف، واحنا كثير شغلات، كثير تهم يعني لا تعد ولا تحصى.
We were taken into interrogation where we were accused of throwing rocks, throwing Molotov cocktails, and so many different kinds of accusations.
في التحقيق تعرضنا لكثير شغلات يعني في حياتنا ما كنا نتوقع، او عمرنا في حياتنا ما سمعنا احنا اصلا. اساليب جدا غريبه.
During the interrogation, we experienced things that we never actually heard about and we didn't know existed.
كانوا يصرخوا علينا كثير، يضربونا، يحطونا في غرف كثير صغيره وعتمه كثير.
We were beaten up, we were put in isolation in very dark rooms.
كانوا جايبين لنا بعض الاوراق باللغه العبريه بيطلبوا منا انه احنا نوقع عليها. رفضنا نوقع لانه ما بنعرف شو هاي الاوراق.
They brought us papers that were written in Hebrew and they wanted us to sign them. We refused to sign them because we didn't understand what was written there.
ضغطوا علينا كثير وهددونا بالاغتصاب.
They put so much pressure on us. They threatened to rape us.
حاولنا كثير نقاوم الموضوع، ما نرفض، بس بالاخر بعمرنا وتفكيرنا ما في مجال اخر الا انه نوقع هاي الاوراق.
We tried to resist, we tried to not comply, but in our age and the fear that we were under, there was no way but to comply.
بعدها ودونا على محكمة.
After that, they took us to court.
وجهونا تهم أول مرة في حياتنا بنسمع فيها، إنه إحنا كنا نقاوم الجيش لما يدخل، وكنا نخطط لعمليات، وكنا نخطط شغلات أكبر من عمرنا.
We heard the accusations for the first time there that we were planning attacks against the Israeli army and that we were preparing for them. Things that were so much, that were definitely not even in range with our age. They were much bigger accusations than us.
حكمونا، أنا انحكمت 8 سنوات ونص.
I was sentenced to 8 years and a half.
وأصدقائي انحكموا، في شاب منهم انحكم 10 سنوات والآخر 11 سنة.
My friend was sentenced, one of them was sentenced to 10 years and the other was 8 years.
دخلنا السجن في كل معاناته. طبعا ما كنا نعرف شو شيء اسمه سجون، شو الحياة هناك، كيف يتعاملوا، ما فيش عندنا فكرة نهائيا عن الموضوع.
We entered prison not really knowing or having any idea about what goes on in prison and what to expect or what kind of life is waiting for us.
يعني التعامل اللا إنساني داخل السجن. ما فيش أطباء، ما فيش صحة، ما فيش أي شيء من مقومات الحياة في السجن.
It was such inhumane conditions that we were under. There were no doctors, there was no medical care. It was just in unhumane conditions.
كمان في السجن كانوا يفوتوا يعملوا تفتيشات وضرب، يضربونا ويهينونا ويسبوا علينا. يعني التجربة اللي احنا عشناها داخل السجون لا توصف.
Even when we were in prison, they would have raids where they would come into the prison cells and attack us, beat us up, and humiliate us on a regular basis.
في حادثة بتذكرها أنا أثناء النقل في شركة أو مجموعة، ما بعرفش بسموها نحشن. هاي وظيفتها تنقل الأسرى من سجن إلى سجن أو من مكان إلى مكان.
I will tell you about one experience which is during the transfer between one prison to another. There's a group or a private company called Nakhshon, which is a part of the military that is responsible for the transfer of prisoners.
مرة كانوا بدهم ينقلونا من سجن لسجن، كانوا ينقلونا عن طريق شاحنة كبيرة فيها من وراها زي القفص، احنا موجودين ورا بدون يعني الكراسي الموجودة كراسي حديد متعبة جدا، مقيدين الأيدي والأرجل في الأرض، يعني وضع صعب جدا جدا.
We were transferred once in one of these buses. It's like more of a bus, but with the back of it is a cage, and each of us would be sitting down with our hands and feet cuffed to the floor on metal chairs that are very uncomfortable and under very difficult conditions.
في الطريق اتعطل الباص وصار يصدر منه دخان، إشي مش طبيعي، إنه الموتور خرب أو إشي طلع منه دخنة، إشي بخنق.
On the way, the bus broke down and there was smoke coming into the bus. It was just a horrible smell of smoke that was suffocating us.
هدول النحشون طلعوا برا الشاحن، أبعدوا عن الشاحن وتركونا لحالنا، وإحنا نضرب على الباب، انخنقنا، ما فيش نفس، ما فيش إشي، كل الدخان فات علينا ومتنا، ونطبل عليهم ما رضوا يفتحوا لنا الباب.
The Nakhshon, the guards left the bus. They went outside to save themselves, and we were just knocking everywhere on the metal because we were suffocating inside. There was no oxygen. All of the smoke was coming into the vehicle.
ضلينا تقريبا 4 ساعات على ما جابوا شاحنة ثانية ورجعت عليها وودونا. حتى اليوم معظم اللي كانوا في الشاحنة وأنا منهم بنعاني من أزمة.
Until they made us wait for 4 hours until they brought another transport car. And until today, all of us, the group that was in that box together, suffer from asthma and breathing problems.
حتى بعد الأسر كمان، بعد ما طلعنا من السجون وعشيرة الطلعة من السجن، بحب أتذكر بس بخصوص ثائر أبو عصب.
Now, years after going out of prison, I would just want to mention something because you mentioned the story of the prisoner who was killed. ثائر أبو عصب.
ثائر أبو عصب كنا موجودين في نفس الغرفة، عشنا سوا مع بعض،
I
كنا
lived
كثير
with
نحلم.
I lived with ثائر أبو عصب for years during my arrest, and we used to dream together.
كيف لما أروح شو بدنا نعمل، كيف كان يحلم، بده يتزوج، بده يعمل بيت، بده يجيب أطفال، بده كثير
He was
شغلات.
dreaming about when he leaves prison that how he would plan his wedding, who he will get married to, having kids, and the life he wants to lead after prison.
أنا بتمنى له رحمة بعد أن قتلوه دم بارد في سجن النقب قبل
May he
أقل من
rest
شهر.
in peace. After they killed him in cold blood in the Naqab prison, they beat him to death.
بدون أي سبب يذكر، ضربوه حتى الموت.
They beat him to death without for no reason at all.
دخل السجن كان عمره 25 سنة.
He was 25 years when he was detained.
كان عمره 20 سنة عفوا، محكوم 25 سنة. كان عمره
he was 20 years old when he was in prison.
ولما استشهد كان عمره 38 سنة.
And he died 38 years old.
18 سنة وهو في السجن ويحلم. قتلوه الحلم.
18 years he was in prison, dreaming of the day to go home, and they killed him, and they killed with his dream along with him.
وكثير مثله، مش واحد ولا اثنين. أثناء وجودي في السجن ما يقارب ال 25 أسير استشهدوا في
So
السجن.
many other prisoners. He's not only the only one. During my time in prison, over 25 prisoners were killed.
أثناء التعذيب
Some during torture
أو الإهمال الطبي
or from medical negligence.
الاحتلال قتل كل شيء فينا. قتل
The
فينا
Israeli
السعادة،
occupation killed everything inside of us.
قتل فينا الحرية،
Killed our freedom.
ولساته بقتل فينا، يعني ما وقفش.
And they're
أكثر
still
من 70
killing us.
سنة ما وقف قتل.
More than 75 years of killing us and they haven't stopped.
حتى الصداقات اللي احنا عملناها بعد السجن مع الناس اللي تعرفنا عليها بعد غياب سنوات في السجون كمان قتلوها.
Even the friendships I've made after coming out of prison, they also killed them.
الاحتلال قتل كل شيء فينا. احنا رح نضل هون، رح نضل عايشين، رح نضل نحارب الاحتلال حتى نموت او حتى نحرر فلسطين.
The
شكرا
Israeli
للجميع.
occupation killed everything in us, but we are still here. We will not leave this land, and we will fight them until we die or until we liberate Palestine.
شكرا.
Thank you.
شكرا محمود، شكرا كتير لك. Thank you, bro. I want to just thank Ashira also. She's the founder of Catharsis. She has worked doing trauma healing with Palestinian children that have been in military jail and through the court system. So she's been doing tough work as well on the ground. And today she is our amazing translator. Really quickly, before our next speaker, I know Arab Barghouti has to jump off. So if there was a specific question for him, please do send it to us. There was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Arab, real quick, was somebody asked, what's the procedure for people to get a lawyer if they're arrested as a Palestinian? Are lawyers allowed to represent Palestinians in military prisons? And I'll leave the other one for the other half for Tala. That's probably easier for her. But what is the procedure to get a lawyer, essentially, when you're arrested as a Palestinian? Is it easy?
I honestly prefer this to be answered by Tala because it's her specialty. I've never been in prison.
Thank God.
Tala Nasir.
Okay, so we'll leave those questions
Yeah.
for Tala. If there are any questions specific to you, we'll definitely ask them, and we will be posting this recording too. So we really appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much for taking the time out today. Next
you.
up, you're welcome. Next up, I want to introduce an amazing sister, dedicated Palestinian lawyer and human rights advocate, possessing an LLM from the University of Canberra and a background in law and international advocacy. She's played pivotal roles at the Women's Centre for Legal Aid and Counselling, WCLAC. In this capacity, she's effectively documented violations of women's rights and actively participated in advocacy initiatives. We'll give it up for our sister Kifaya.
Thank you everyone and all the speakers, and thank you for being here. I will share a presentation with you that I have prepared for now, and it's based on testimonies we've collected from women who were imprisoned and were released recently. So can you see it? Nancy, can you tell me if you can see?
Yeah, we can see it, sis.
Okay, thank you very much. So these testimonies we've collected from women who were recently released, and those women who agreed to talk to us because most of them were threatened not to share their experiences with anyone. So we have at the Women's Center for Legal Aid and Counseling, we work at documenting Israeli violations against women specifically. And for that purpose, we have dedicated field researchers who are women deployed amongst many areas of Palestine, including Gaza, Jerusalem, and the West Bank as well. So basically, these are the, let's say, the things we deducted from the testimonies we collected. Most women abducted, we'd like to use the word abducted because it's more of an abduction when they come to your house. Mostly it's after 2 a.m. in the morning. Over 17 to 30 soldiers storm into your house, and they start by blowing up the door, resulting in injuries for many people. Here we have Marwan Barghouti. She's 60 years old. She was abducted from her home in September prior to the 7th of October. And she said she received prior threats on her phone from IOF soldiers. So women face that. They get phone calls from IOF soldiers like Captain Diab and Captain Nimr, as they call themselves. And they threaten women with, we will arrest you, we will come for you, and stuff like that. And imagine as a woman having to live under this threat constantly. Also, the women interviewed by the Women's Center all testified, all of them, that they were abducted during the nighttime. It was always after 2 a.m. in the morning. The arrest or the abduction was an extreme violence. They were hit, they were blindfolded, they were handcuffed, they were dragged to cars. They didn't know where they were going and what did they do, what are they being abducted for. We have also noticed that following the 7th of October, there's extensive damage to property. So it's not just regular searching, maybe opening up cabinets and throwing stuff all over the floor. No, there was more of a deliberate damage to property of people that is unreasonable. We have also noticed a trend that is hostage taking, we'd like to call it, is when they arrest a mother or a father and they would call the person, the targeted person that they want to detain, and they would be like, we have your mother with us, so you better give yourself up or we will keep your mother or your sister, your wife, your kids with us. And this has been on the rise since the 7th of October. Another trend we have noticed is humiliation. We haven't any, it's always been going on, but recently it has been published, and I will show you some examples here. I'm pretty sure you all know what happened to Ahad al-Tamimi. Ahad al-Tamimi was falsely accused of, not officially accused, obviously, but she was incited against by Telegram groups of settlers, saying that she's been posting stuff encouraging Nazi and behavior and whatnot. She was arrested, and then this photo was shared by the Minister of National Security on his X account, his personal X account, like saying that, posting about her arrest. She was arrested like at dawn. This is her bedroom. This is her waking up to all of those soldiers in her bedroom. Additionally, this is another photo also posted by the Minister of National Security. As you see, he's posting about arresting 4 women who shared incitement posts on their social media. And what we worked with Adala, which is an organization that works in 1948, they said that the posts were merely showing sympathy for Gaza, saying anything of the sorts, in may Allah help Gaza or something of the sorts, and they would get arrested for that. This story is quite peculiar because the national, again, Itamar bin Gfir published this photo on his personal account. You can go check, saying that this business owner has published pictures of abductees and hostages, Israeli hostages meaning, and mocked them online. And then they destroyed her business and they arrested her and they took a photo of her behind the flag she loves the most, as he said. But when we did further investigation, this lady does not have any businesses. She's a housewife. She doesn't have any Facebook accounts or social media accounts to use that for sharing anything. Basically, what she said is they came home, they tried to arrest her husband, they couldn't find him, and they took her with them, and they took this photo, basically. Ghadir said she had a surgery prior, she was in no condition to be taken like that. And she also said that following her abduction, she has faced so much social problems with the neighbors because everyone was so scared to approach her because of the violence that took place at her house and the way they treated her, and they talked about her, but she had no idea what's going on. She didn't have a business, she didn't have social media accounts, which this is like what, like I said, Itamar bin Gfir published about her. You can still find the post on his X account. This is Asif al-Barghouti. She's 64. She's diabetic. Similarly, following the 7th of October, she was abducted from her home. This photo was taken by an IOF soldier. As you see her standing in the corner, these are the men of her family. They were tied up and blindfolded in her house before she was taken. Describing the way they treated her, she was pushed, she was hit, she was dragged to the car. She didn't know where she was going and why they were taking her. And this is what we tried to detect from the women that testified, that basically there was so much physical assaults and torture of women. All the women who came to the prison were beaten up and they showed signs of bruises and torture. Women were threatened of rape and sexual assault. This is Lama Khatir. She went out multiple times, bravely enough, because if you know the Palestinian society, it's really hard to speak about being threatened of rape and sexual assault, but bravely she went out there and she said that she was threatened with rape. A soldier came to her and said, we are 20 soldiers, we will rape you like they raped our women or something like that. Women were denied proper food, water, and they would, all the women said that the water was boiling hot because they had to get it out of a faucet, the bathroom faucet, and they couldn't drink it. So they found out that they managed to make this technique where they put clothing on the faucet so the water would be a bit colder when they get to drink it. They were denied medication. Both Suhair and Hanan were sick and they were denied their medication, resulting in complications because, like I said, Suhair was diabetic and she suffered from that. Women were denied sanitary products and medical attention for those who needed it. And regarding the sanitary products, women gathered and they decided not to eat the little food that they gave them because they would give them like minimal food and stuff to share with over all of the people in the room. And then they decided to send the food back unless you give us sanitary product because we have women here bleeding and they need that. And amazingly enough, they actually responded and they gave them sanitary products. Also, following the 7th of October, all of their belongings were confiscated. They didn't have any mattresses to sleep on, no blankets, and it was really cold during the night, and many of them suffered following that. And like Tala said, and Arab said, they were not allowed to see any lawyers, and they were not allowed to contact their families to know what's actually going on with them. Sorry, this was supposed to be muted. This is Khulud. Khulud is 30 years old. She was abducted from her home in Balata refugee camp. Khulud she gave birth to a baby 2 weeks prior to her abduction. She had a surgery. She had a C-section. She was abducted from her home with her husband. She was sleeping at her parents' house because she suffered complications and her mom was taking care of her. Khulud was beaten up repeatedly and she was accused, she says, that she attempted to kill a soldier, even though she was hospitalized for a long period before she was even abducted. She was beaten in a way that she kept bleeding the whole time. And when she went to the cell, she had lots of blood and she lost consciousness and she was denied any medical attention for a long time. And she was really embarrassed, like she says, because of how much she bleeded, that the inmates went on a strike and threatened of strike, and they threatened not to eat the food unless they help Khulud. Khulud actually, she was referred to us by Asif to speak to her and provide her with counseling because she needed that. She was denied medication. She was denied any kind of medical attention, which she suffered complications afterwards and she became sick, really sick, and she had to be hospitalized afterwards. Basically, all of the women that we interviewed said that following their release, they were all threatened of not speaking to any press, any media. Khulud, after having this interview done with a channel called Al-Quds, she was called on her phone by Captain. He's like, we're watching you. Do not give any more press releases. Do not talk to any media or we will come back for you. Women are afraid of going back to prison again. So that's why most of them choose not to speak to us. Ahad al-Tamimi, for example, her father is also arrested and she was threatened. If you talk to the media, if you talk about anything that happened to you, we will kill your father. And that's why she chose not to speak to anyone about her ordeal, except for the moments she went out of the bus and she spoke about that. That's it for the testimonies we collected. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kifaya. Keep the questions coming. We have 2 more speakers and then we'll open it up for the questions that we're getting. We are seeing all of your questions. So don't worry, we're making notes. Next up, I would like to introduce Palestinian human rights defender, daughter of former female political prisoner Shada Audi, who was arrested July 7th, 2021, serving almost a year in prisons. Shireen Abu Fanouna, تفضلي حبيبتي.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. And thank you for all these very important presentations. I'm here today to share with you the story of my mother, Shada Audi. I think Kifaya already shed some light about the situation of the female prisoners, and also Majd and Mahmoud, they also gave us like a description of what are the conditions. What I'm also going to focus on is also what the families usually have to go through when they have prisoners, Palestinian prisoners. So just to give you some background, my mom, Shada Audi, is one of the leading Palestinian feminist and human rights defenders. And human rights defenders working to promote the right to health and reproductive health in Palestine. She is a nurse by profession and served as the director of the health work committees. It's a prominent health organization that is responsible for providing 12% of the health services across the West Bank, including in remote areas. Since 2019, the Israeli army raided the organization's office 4 times, in 2019, in 2020, and twice in 2021. On June 9, 2021, the Israeli forces raided the organization's office in Ramallah. They confiscated the computers, vandalized its premises, and they additionally fixed a military order on the outside door after sealing it, closing the organization for 6 months on the basis of security reasons without providing further details. On January 2022, on January, sorry, 2020, the Israeli army issued an order designating the organization illegal without informing any of its employees or the Palestinian Authority. As you probably have seen in the media, Israel continues to intimidate the Palestinian human rights defenders and civil society organizations. From the health work committees, my mom's previous former organization, 2 other employees were arrested in March and April 2021. And in October 2021, the Israeli government designated another 6 Palestinian civil society organizations as terrorists. And they all are organizations that work on different issues in Palestine, such as children's rights, women's rights, etc. This decision was followed by an Israeli military order that gives Israeli soldiers the authority to detain anyone who works at these 6 organizations. So the attack on the health work committees was just the first step and part of the same long-term strategy to silence and in the end eliminate Palestinian civil society. So now, this is basically just the background context of my mom's case. On July 7, 2021, around 2 a.m. in the morning, about 15 Israeli soldiers raided our home in Ramallah, forcibly detaining my mom and terrorizing the family. The Israeli soldiers confiscated her mobile phone, seized the keys of the organization's car, and confiscated the car itself. She was asked to bring her medication with her, but was not allowed to bring them in a bag, which resulted in her forgetting one of the 8 medicines that she takes on a daily basis. At the time of her arrest, my mom was 60 years old. For the first 20 days, my mom was held in Hasharon detention facility, which is outside the West Bank, in violation of international law, with limited access to a lawyer, no access to the family. During this period, my mom lost about 20 pounds of weight, which is 9 kilos. She was denied access to her reading glasses and to one of her daily medications. On July 15, and only after several medical reports had been sent to the clinic of the detention facility, my mom finally received all of her medication. She was, during this period at Hasharon detention facility, she was kept in a cell where she had no pillows. She used the cover as a pillow and the jacket that she was wearing, that she was detained wearing as a cover to have some privacy because the cell had 24-hour video surveillance. During the 20-day period of this, let's say, interrogation period, my mom had 4 court hearings at Ofar military camp near Ramallah. Every time she showed up to the hearings wearing the same clothes she had the night of her arrest, she was telling us, like, signaling to us how much she was very uncomfortable. And, you know, she felt very, like, dirty. She didn't have access to proper clothing or anything. The detention facility was 1.5 hours away from Ofar. So my mom, though it was just 1 hour, let's say, the road from the detention facility to where the court was, she had to go through a trip of 24 hours. This is Mahmoud, he referred to it. It's the Bosta. So all this time, 24 hours, she was like with shackled wrists and feet for usually a 10 minutes hearing. And my mom and other detainees, they were kept inside metal rooms inside the bus, or once they were at the Aufar military camp. My mom, because it was July, so it was it's the summer, so she described them as a hellish sauna. But obviously during winter, they are also freezing rooms. I just wanted you to picture, at the time when my mom was arrested, I was working abroad. So the first time I saw my mother was actually at the hearing. And imagine just bringing someone who's 60 years old, barely able to walk properly, and she was shackled from her wrists and her feet. The hearing was exactly 7 minutes, and I wasn't allowed to hold her, kiss her, or anything, like just to say hello. And this was after almost half a year of not seeing my mother. So that was my first time seeing her. It was very shocking. On July 26th, so we're talking from 7 July till July 26th, 5 charges were brought against her. They were all related to her civil work at the health work committees. Absolutely don't make sense. No evidence, proper evidence, let's say, that was collected or made sense. And one of them is because she was the director of the organization. So they decided that she was holding a position in unlawful association. They decided that she was in a public event on 14 May 2019. And so just the fact that she was present in that event, that was considered a charge against her. Receiving and bringing funds illegally into the area, the West Bank. So because it's an organization that receives donations and stuff like that and funding. So that was also considered, a problem. It's the same fraudulent use of documents, receiving like something weird, but just these charges on their own at the beginning, we were talking about 10 years of imprisonment. The military prosecution, on July, I just wanted to say, after the charges were brought, she was finally transferred to the Mun female prison. So she wasn't no longer in the detention facility. She moved to the prison with other female prisoners. Again, this prison is in Haifa, which is outside the West Bank, and where family members, we cannot visit without permits issued by the Israeli occupation authorities. During her arrest, many scheduled family visits had to be canceled, as the Israeli prison authorities claimed at that time that they were rehabilitating the prison without providing further information on when family visits will resume. Please also note that family visits were allowed only for 2 family members, once per month and for 45 minutes. Our visits to the prison were organized through the ICRC, and it used to take us exactly 12 hours, if not more, every time we had to do these visits. When we visited my mom, our interaction was for 45 minutes from behind a glass and over the phone. We couldn't be physically close to her. And the families were always like responsible for bringing their beloved ones, clothes for each season. And mind you that these clothes, like they had to be restricted by the colors, by the design of the clothes. For example, no zippers or strings of any sorts. 4 books every time we were allowed to bring, and they had to be unrelated to Palestine or politics. The photos had no Palestinian symbols in them, just like regular family photos. We cannot bring more than that. Every item was thoroughly inspected by the prison authorities. This part of the visit was very humiliating for the families that were shouted at in Hebrew for not bringing the right item and always returning them. We witnessed many families returning with broken hearts, disappointment, just because simple stuff that they made sure to bring for the prisoners weren't allowed to enter. Additionally, there were also no phones in prison, so the only way for the families to deliver news to the prisoners were always through the radio programs on certain days and hours. I remember me, my sister, my father, brother, we would sit every Friday glued to a radio and just trying to make sure that our messages go through to my mother. And we used to receive the responses from my mother for every time when there was a lawyer visiting, or from the letters that she managed to she managed to give to the freed prisoners. With regards to the hearings, they all took place in Hebrew, a language that neither my mom nor the family members understood. Very poor translation into Arabic was provided. The hearings usually did not last more than 10 minutes. Also, only one family member was allowed inside the courtroom under the context of COVID-19. And up until today, I think it's still the same policy. The courtroom was usually full of officers, lawyers, and other attendees, but only the family members had to go through this restriction. And there has to be like this kind of coordination every time. Despite the repeated requests by my mom's legal team, the prosecution did not disclose all the evidence they claimed to have against her. This caused substantial delay in the proceedings. Many courts hearings had to be rescheduled to enable all parties to exchange and review the necessary documents. Such delays, like the repeated postponement of her hearings, were used strategically to extend the duration of her imprisonment. So ironically, on International Nursing Day, May 12, 2022, my mom was finally sentenced, and I'm saying finally for a reason, was finally sentenced to 16 months of imprisonment, $9,000 fine, and 5 years of suspended sentence on the condition of not working with health work committees or any similar organization in the future. Suspended sentence means that within the 5 years, she could be jailed again for 3 months if she provided any assistance to health work committees, so the former organization where she worked, or she could be jailed for a year if she became a member of a political party. The reason that I say finally sentenced is because the Israeli military justice system is far from justice or providing Palestinians with basic fair trial safeguards. The conviction rate against Palestinians by military courts is over 90%. My mom could have waited for years before a decision in her case could have been made, and there are many cases like this. Like many Palestinians, she accepted a plea deal to ensure that her conviction, so she wanted to be convicted and to have an eventual release, because otherwise we wouldn't have known like when or how long her imprisonment, she had to endure the imprisonment. So eventually my mom was released on June 3, 2023, with the hope that all Palestinian prisoners are freed and reunited with their families very soon. I leave with this, I guess because everyone was talking about the experiences, but I'd like just to share maybe one thing in the chat box for everyone, which is a comic that was made about my mom's case by the Women Human Rights Defender Network in the MENA region. I just shared the link with everyone here. And that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Shireen. Thank you for sharing that story, Habibti, and all the important information you just gave people. A lot of questions about this is being recorded, and we will put it out. And any information that folks want, we're happy to provide from the different organizations that have taken part today. We are going to go to our final speaker, a sister from Balata refugee camp. I also know personally, her father is the founder and director of Yafa Cultural Center, which is the only center in Balata refugee camp, which has a population of, I believe, over 30 to 32,000 people living in that small space. And it's a center that I've visited many times. It works with the children there and gives them an outlet for theater and video and arts. Reham Arafat, who's joining us now, a month ago exactly, her brother Rasmi Arafat was murdered by the occupation forces. Her other brother, Ammar Arafat, is in Israeli jails and has been in and out his entire life also. She's going to tell us his story. And a very important point to make is that they have no idea, because they are not allowed any lawyers to visit them, they have no idea if he knows that his brother passed away yet. And you can imagine what that is like, being in a jail and finding out that your brother was killed. by the Israeli army. So next up, Riham Arafat. تفضلي حبيبتي. I think she's going to speak in English. وأشيرة if إذا في كلام مش قادرة تعبر عليه نساعديها حبيبتي.
Hi everyone. I am the sister of the detained Ammar Arafat. I will talk about Ammar's first arrest. He was still a young boy, entering and leaving occupation prison at the age of 15. He didn't experience childhood like other kids his age. I recall that after his deals, he bought marbles and bicycle to live his childhood like children would like. However, 2 months later, he was arrested again and spent 2.5 years occupation prisons. The third time, Ammar was brutally imprisoned with attack dagger lens during the arrest. The occupation letter هون سامعين؟ فين الصوت مش واضح؟
سامعينك.
Okay. The third time, Ammar was brutally imprisoned with attack dagger lens during the arrest. The occupation letter lists a video claiming they reels only one dog, but Ammar told us it was 5. He suffered severe injuries from the fist. He couldn't move his hand and needed physical therapy. Ammar فتح General Jad in Megiddo prisons had been brutally beaten, suppressed, psychological torture, and put in solitary confinement multiple times. Despite the brutality, he remains dedicated to defending his homeland, all saying, "If I don't defend my country, what will I say to my God?" Ammar is centered in Megiddo prison facing injunctions and mistreatment, and he is unaware of his only brother's martyrdom. It is worth noting that Ammar has improved health and condition as service from diabetes and reports from inside the prisons indicate a lack of access to the necessary medication for him.
ريهام
What?
خلصتي؟ So
Yes.
I'm just gonna go over some of the stuff that Rehan was talking about. So being arrested from 15 years old onwards, I actually also know Ammar personally. And then at 15 rearrested 2 months later after he was released, and sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. He's had his shoulder broken, he's had his arms broken, he's had his legs broken. And then last year he had sent me a recording, and it actually was online and went viral at one point, of a Israeli army general who called his cell phone and told him to go hand himself in. And Ammar refused and told him, "I'm right here. If you want me, then come to my home." And in that recording, the general told him in broken Arabic, "I'm making it my personal duty. I'm going to drink your blood and your parents will visit you at your grave." And I remember telling Ammar, we need to translate that so that people can see the most moral army in the world and how they handle Palestinian people and how they want to, that's their form of trying to bring someone in for questioning. I remember in, I believe, February of last year, there was hundreds of soldiers. I remember watching it on Instagram. Hundreds of soldiers went to their home in Balata refugee camp at the early hours of the morning, and unleashed attack dogs into the home, which obviously attacked him and injured him, and he's been in jail since. His father told me a few weeks ago that a few days ago, sorry, one of the released prisoners from Nablus was in the same prison, Majiddu, with Ammar. And the only way that families have contact, most of them currently, is by speaking to people that are released to find out how their family members are doing. And so one of the released prisoners told his father that Ammar had been beaten severely to the point where they couldn't even recognize his face. And this was a few days after, it was like October 9th or 10th, around that time. He said it was a few days into the bombardment of Gaza, and that he had been put in solitary confinement. And so nobody knows whether he knows that his brother passed away. So shukran Hamla Ilek. I want to thank everybody that's been speaking today. I truly appreciate it. We're going to have Tala. I know there's a lot of legal questions, so I'm going to have Tala come back up and we'll go through the questions that were asked. There was a question for Marwan Barghouti, who had to jump off. One of the questions for Arab was, it said it was a difficult question, but do we know the chances for Dr. Marwan Barghouti to be released, Arab's father? And this is Arab's response he just sent me. He said, we never lost hope that he'll be released, and we're more hopeful that an exchange can get all of our prisoners released. But most importantly, a ceasefire. And something that Arab wrote was, because if that's not freedom of soul, if that's not freedom that he's practicing, even inside prison, educating people, getting knowledge. And the best thing is that when I visit my father, I see how positive he is. I mean, he's always smiling, talking about the future. So for me, yeah, to come and tell, when is he going to be free? Come on, man, what is freedom to you? Our first question, I'm going to Tala بعدك معنا. Do we have Tala still? You might have to unmute yourself, Tala.
I can't unmute myself with
Sorry.
myself. It's
I was
okay.
like, where is she? I had to go through the sea of people. Okay, so one of the questions is in military
About
court.
the administrative, sorry, there was a question on the administrative detention actually
So do
after
that
the,
one first, yeah.
okay. So, yes, before the 7th of October, there were 700 Palestinian detainees held under administrative detention, while now, or after the 7th of October, we're talking about approximately 3,000. So yes, the number increased actually. Of course, the occupation authorities work on arresting the largest number of Palestinians and imprisoning them. And this is, of course, to impose the further repression and control over Palestinians and in attempts to silence them. The administrative detention, actually, the arbitrary administrative detention is an easy policy or an easy tool to detain the largest possible number of Palestinians behind bars without presenting any charges against them. So that's concerning the first question. There was a question also on the ability to hire actually a lawyer, just like you were asking Arab, I think. So yes, you can get a lawyer in military courts, but one important thing to note is that the lawyer must speak Hebrew. There is actually a translator inside the military court, but usually the translator is busy on his mobile, so he does nothing actually inside the court. And one another thing is that there is no trust in this translator. So lawyers usually, these translators are usually soldiers in the occupying army, which are performing the mandatory military service. So they are soldiers. So there is a lack of trust to speak in Arabic and to wait for the translation. Another issue concerning lawyers is that the Palestinian lawyers holding the West Bank IDs cannot visit prisons within the occupied territories 1948. So except if they obtain a permit to enter Israel. So it's also, we are not permitted to enter the prisons inside the occupied territories 1948. One another thing is that there are several obstacles facing lawyers, specifically concerning the right to appoint a lawyer. And this occurs in the interrogation period, actually, because the detainee can be denied from meeting his lawyer for up to 60 days. So, and this is, of course, to prevent the lawyers from monitoring and documenting the crimes of torture and ill treatment perpetrated against detainees. So this is a brief on the restrictions against lawyers and how does it work inside the military courts.
Thank you, Tala. I'm going to ask you something else, but just real quick, I want to remind people we still do have a couple of the speakers here. If there is any questions to Majd or Mahmoud, Shireen, or Kifaya, please feel free to send those questions. And to Riham, they're still in the room with us. There was a question from somebody asking, what are the pros and cons of taking a plea deal or arguing the case?
Actually, in most of the cases, there are plea deals inside the military courts because just like Shireen said, the conviction rate is 99%. And all this military court system actually that lacks the guarantees of a fair trial with a lot of violations to the due process, actually. Denying the right to know of the nature and cause of the charge in cases of administrative detention. This is not an independent and impartial tribunal, actually. There's no right to public trial and proceedings and so on. So yes, actually, most of the time lawyers do not provide evidence and go in these proceedings because of all this military system. The plea bargains are always like 99% of the cases we go in this way, in the plea bargain way, because we can't give evidence. We have no trust in these military courts. And of course, this is a problem we have. We always try to actually like talk about and like say what shall we do against all these what's happening inside the military courts, boycotting the military courts, not doing the plea bargains and all that. So the Palestinian prisoners organizations always like negotiate about all this, what's happening inside military courts and how should we deal with these restrictions actually and violations.
Thank you, Hawid. I feel like this next question.
Can I come in? I just wanted to add something.
Yeah,
if that's okay. Also, in addition to what Tala said, if you remember when I was talking about the charges, you are already coming with a prosecution that is already considering the Palestinian prisoner condemned. So whatever you try to do, whether it is in terms of defense or like you could have the most excellent lawyer there presenting and defending and talking about international law, the problems with the military justice system, but still you are considered guilty. So most of the Palestinian prisoners find themselves in places and situations where there is absolutely like there's no hope in a way to even try to defend your case and come out with it. And we know many, like Al-Halabi's case, he's been in for example, he's been now, I don't know what it's like 200 hearings so far, and yet there is no decision. And it's been 6 years. The guy is in prison, still no conviction, nothing, and no hope. So I mean, it's a risk that you could take, but then it depends how much time do you have also. And my mom was 60 years old, so we don't want her to spend like to come out when she is 70, and she was already having many health issues. So imagine like how many cases are like this. Yeah, sorry.
That kind of answers one of the questions that I was going to say. Is somebody said, you know, is it like the system here where if you have money for a good lawyer, your chances are higher? And I'm like, well, Tala just told you the conviction rate is 99%. So I don't know what that 1% might be. Is that 1% literally if you have a lot of money to pay them off, or what?
No, actually, no.
No
Lawyers can't play anything in these military courts, actually, unfortunately.
And one other question just relating to that, and then I'm going to go to Majd. for a question for him, but it says here with the lawyer's ID that it's a very interesting point. And is this done intentionally to prevent lawyers from visiting? So if they transfer a detainee from the West Bank to 48, or is that to detain so that the lawyer cannot visit without a permit, or how is that?
Of course. Yes, we're talking about the most of the detainees are being transferred to prisons inside Israel. So we can't even reach those prisoners. Only one prison, which is the Ofer prison, it's in the West Bank, actually, which we can reach with the West Bank IDs. But all other Palestinian prisoners are being transferred to prisons inside Israel. So, of course, we can't reach those prisoners. So, yes.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to you in just a moment. I want to go to Majd وكمان محمود. نبدأ في مجد وبعدين محمود. بس السؤال إنه بتحسوا إنه في أي واحد اللي اشتغل بالسجن اللي كان عنده أي how do you say sympathy يعني كان يحس مع الفلسطينية يعني أي نقطة إنسان يعني do you feel يعني there was any sympathy for Palestinian prisoners from any of the prison guards in the prison?
Question for me, Nancy.
Yes.
To be honest, I think it's one of the questions that always was going in my mind. It's like some moments you can like recognize some kind of humanitarian treatment, or I think like some actions or some like events, but really I was confused to answer this question, which was going in my mind. But I know that they obey their rules. They have rules and they are strict and committed to this to these rules. But I discovered these days, when these rules disappear, they allow the prison guards to do anything they want, and they can torture, they can humiliate, they can punish. When all of these rules disappeared, their treatment was all of it out of revenge in these days, because what's happened the 7th of October, all of the regulations in prisons, it's like punishment. It's like they have to pay the price of what happened in Gaza. So even if I met some guard prisoners who like treat me in a good way, or he like express his empathy or his supporting in something here or there, I think the problem is in the structure, in the system.
Thank you, Maj. There was another question for you too. Hold on one second. How can people support Palestinians whose family members are in jail? يعني كيف بيقدروا الناس يساعدوا العائلات اللي أهلهن في السجن؟
You know, when I was released, like 1 year and a half ago, some of my friends, the people, they asked me how we can stand for the Palestinian prisoners. So my answer is, for the prisoners, the most important thing to get their freedom. They don't want any kind of money. They don't want to improve their circumstances in prisons. They don't want someone like to express the empathy for them, even if it's important thing. But their main like goal to get their freedom. So how we can do for their freedom? It's a hard question, but I don't think that the Israelis can accept to release any of their prisoners, especially who's sentenced for life, without force them to do that. For example, we know that the Palestinian Authority make negotiation and with the Israelis. They committed to the international law, and they recognized Israel, and they was committed to the peace process, and they failed to release especially the prisoners that they were sentenced for life, and they claim they have blood on their hands, and they are criminals and terrorists and everything. But when some group like Hamas kidnapped a soldier, they accept to release these prisoners. What they want to tell us, that we can't accept your demands without force us to do it. I think this is the Zionist mentality.
Thank you, Majd. I'm going to come back to you in just a moment. Tala, maybe also Kifaya can answer this too. But Grace was asking, is there a way to directly donate to help political prisoners, or even to donate to lawyers? So do your organizations, Addameer or Wiklak, do you guys take donations? And if so, we can throw them in the chat, and we'll send them out with a follow-up email. But can you let us know, how the money is used, if there's specific funds for different, whether it's for prisoners or for the lawyers for the prisoners?
Yes, actually, of course, we accept funds. It's actually used for our programs. We have many different programs. The legal aid program, we give the legal aid to the Palestinian political prisoners, in addition to our documentation program and the advocacy program also. So we actually have a coordination with War on Want, and we usually accept donations to their account because of the security issue, let's say, of Addameer, designating Addameer as a terrorist organization. So for security reasons and issues, we usually people usually send the funds to War on Want, and then we can take them. So we can send you let's say, the link and all that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tala. And we'll put the links in, and we also are going to send out this recording with links to the organizations that spoke today. There was a question, and I mean, we could probably, I'll let you answer it, but they're asking if there's a Palestinian abolitionist group or organization, to abolish prisons or jails. I feel like it's already kind of been answered in the way that, but if you want to...
Yes, actually, maybe Majd talked about this, but all these resistance groups and all that, they are working on doing that.
Nancy, I think I read once about abolitionism in the US. I hope we have this kind of movement, of thoughts, of something to make a narrative about the Zionist prisons. But as Tala said, that I think it's a part of our resistance to the Zionist regime, which prisons are a part of it. But to be honest, I don't think that there is something solid to say that the Palestinians has or have a abolitionism movement or something like that.
Thank you. محمود بعده معنا. محمود في سؤال إنه يعني حكى شوي وهو عم بيحكي الجواب لهاي، بس بدهم يعرفوا what was it like to be in prison? Were you able to communicate with others? So التعامل يوم في السجن كيف كان لإلك؟ و كان هوين إنه تحكي مع الأسرى الباقي يعني، ولا يعني كيف كان التعامل؟ إنه كنت بس تضلكوا في الأوضة، ولا كان في قسم بس هو اللي أنتوا بتقدروا يعني تتعاملوا مع بعض تحكوا مع بعض، ولا كيف كان الوضع لإلكم؟ أنا محمود.
He's a co-host, so you should be good.
اعمل unmute خيي. I can't even, I'm trying to find him. Oh, there he is. Mahmoud. Just trying to figure out how to unmute. Okay, well, we could go to another question until Mahmoud's ready. Is the judicial process the same for Palestinians living within 48, what they call Israel, Jerusalem, Gaza, and the West Bank? And do their rights differ depending on where they live? So I will say most definitely, but I will let a professional answer that. Who wants to take that, Tala or Kifaya?
I can take that, and maybe Kifaya will add if she wants. Okay, so of course there are different systems within this Israeli regime, actually. The one for the West Bank Palestinians, the military orders apply on Palestinians from the West Bank, while Palestinians from Jerusalem and occupied territories, 1948, are being tried before the civil courts, and the civil law applies to them. So this is the main difference. Concerning or regarding the Palestinians from Gaza, they are being tried before the civil courts in Israel, and the civil laws are applied on them. So this is the main difference. There's no the courts are not military; they are the civil courts, and that doesn't mean that there's no discrimination between the Palestinians tried before these civil courts and the Israelis tried against these courts. There are several differences in the extension times for the interrogation and so on. It's a very big issue, actually. But let me say that, yes, they are different. The rights are actually different. The military orders and courts are actually do not have any the minimum requirements for the fair trial guarantees, while civil courts actually, even if there is discrimination against Palestinians within these courts, but they still have more rights than Palestinians in military courts.
Thank you. Kifaya, did you want to add to that? No. And just really quickly, does WICLAC accept donations as well as an organization?
I'll send my email. Maybe she can email me and I can refer her to the specialized person at WICLAC, because I'm not the expert, to be honest.
Perfect. Thank you, Habibti. And then I'm going to take this final question and then we will log off. We have been 2 minutes away from 2 hours, and we appreciate everybody staying with us. Question. Well, I'll say it how it's written first and then I'll rephrase it. What is the role of the PA, if any, in helping to release Palestinian political prisoners? And I was going to say, what is the role of the PA in helping lock up Palestinian political prisoners? Can we talk about the PA's role in how they handle Palestinian prisoners as well? Any takers for that one?
Can I maybe interfere? So, and maybe Tala or anyone else, correct me if I'm wrong, but the PA has created, let's say, a ministry. Well, it used to be called a ministry before um, Israeli/American brought a case against the PA because of this ministry and its work on the Palestinian political prisoners. So before that, it used to be called the ministry. Now it's called something else, like a representative for the Palestinian political prisoners. What they do actually have a group of lawyers that they sent to the prisons to visit the Palestinian prisoners. And at the same time, they also have some of these, I don't know if they take on cases or not, but at least I remember with my mom's case, they were visiting her. At the same time, they allocate money because it's a very cheap system, by the way, for the occupation. What they do is that they lock up our prisoners, and it is the PA that pays for their money. So let's say the Israeli system is actually profiting from it. So they pay like towards every Palestinian prisoners, they pay money for them to keep them in the jail. And what is left is basically for the families to pay like an amount also of money every month for the prisoners, obviously if they can or not. After the prison, once they are released, they also, I think, get money for about 6 months until they prove that they are able to support themselves, the prisoners. So in a way, it's some sort of, let's say, reintegration in the Palestinian society and to stand on their feet again, etc. But this is, as far as I know, very, very simple. Like, at least from experience, this is what I've seen. Besides that, I don't know, I mean, representing the PA's policies with regards to this issue in terms of international events or, local, regional events, etc.
I will add something like it's important also to note that all the demands by the PA for the release of all Palestinian political prisoners, especially in cases of the sick and ill prisoners, such as Nasser Abu Hamid, who died in prison, have not received any response from the occupation authorities, while what we are seeing now is, just like Majd said, like they are forced to get all Palestinian political prisoners from inside Israeli prisons, while all these demands and the PA was like doing all the international work and demands and all that didn't work. And Nasser Abu Hamid died inside prison. Many other Palestinian ill and sick prisoners died inside prisons without releasing them due to their medical issue. So this one important thing. So that what the PA does for these for the Palestinian political prisoners, I think it can't do anything at this time, actually. And that's what we've seen through all these years of the harsh conditions inside prisons and the killing inside prisons, and without releasing anyone, with all the calls that also the leaders of the PA used to make with the Israeli officials and so on. All these calls, all these demands were nothing in front of releasing this number of Palestinian political prisoners in this way, in this prisoners exchange deal.
Thank you so much, Tala Nasir from Addameer. I just put the websites of the two organizations that joined us today in the chat. We will be sending out contact info for those that took part. If people wanted to stay in contact and had any follow-up questions, we will be sharing this video. Again, I'm going to ask people to please support Eyewitness Palestine. You can also sign up to our mailing list. We do these webinars at least once a month. We do have one on December 20th with Reverend Mitri from Bethlehem, who is the founder of Dar al-Kalima University, which is an arts and cultures university in Bethlehem. We are going to be sharing Palestinian businesses, Palestinian artists, so that you can buy Palestine this year and next year and until Palestine is free. But we definitely want to uplift Palestinian independent business owners because there is no tourism there. There is, a dire need for support. And so we'll be uplifting them on December 20th webinar. So please sign up on our website, and that's Eyewitness Palestine, EYE Palestine, eyewitnesspalestine.org. I want to thank everybody that was on this webinar again, very much for taking the time out. We truly appreciate you. And just, I cannot stress enough that we need to put pressure every single day on our representatives for a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire and an end to the occupation. That is the only way forward. Do not become desensitized to the images that we're seeing. I've been seeing this pretty much all my life, and it's like what's happening now is horrific. And I will tell you, I cry every single day, but then I pick myself up and I think, you know what, it's a privilege that I can sit here and cry about it. What am I actually doing about it? It's fine to let it out, but you have to do something. Your voice matters. A lot of people think, oh, I'm just this little. No, your voice matters. The more you share, the more people are seeing it, the more people care, and the more people are encouraged. And especially if you know people who are influencers, if people have been silent for the last, almost 2 months, now's the time for people to put pressure on them to open their mouths. There's no time to be silent, because when you turn around in, however many years' time and you say, what did you do to make a difference? You don't want to be the idiot standing there saying nothing. So please, I urge everybody to do whatever they can to share Palestinian voices, Palestinian stories, and end this occupation. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.